Hello again, and thank you everybody for joining us today. We have Diane Terando, reading specialist with, how long have you been with Project Read?
Off and on for a couple of years.
Okay, and how long have you taught reading?
Shall we try 40 years?
Okay, awesome. I think that qualifies you as a specialist. Now, first of all, Diane, would you like to tell us how you start with an adult learner, even before you get into the worksheets that you have here?
Well, with an adult learner, you have to establish some type of relationship and respect between the student and the teacher, because the adult learner is usually very uncomfortable. And it's taken a lot of courage on their part to come in and start something like this. So many times I have told them that this is something that works for a lot of people, and it's something that is easy to the extent that it doesn't take long once we get started. And because they don't really want to spend a lot of time doing this, because they want to get on with reading. And they've always had, many times they've had failures when they have sat down to do some exercises and things like that.
Sure. So I think this is common with a lot of our learners.
Right. And so they're very much on guard. And so you try to start just a little bit of conversation, but not too much, get down to what you're going to work on.
Okay.
Okay. Definitely, you can't be sure they like teachers. Because excuse my language, but as I've said to many of them, school was just pure hell for you, right? And they will say yes. Because when they started off in elementary grades, as many of you know as teachers, they have experienced struggle, failure constantly. And they just begin to think there's nothing they can do right. Because many times the parents go into parent-teacher conferences and they listen to what the teachers say, and that's what the teachers say, and the parents don't know any differently. How are they supposed to argue?
Yeah.
So it's set up to be a cycle of failure.
So they've had a long time of that.
Yes.
As well.
Yes. So the job as a teacher is to treat the student with respect, show the student that you are glad to be there with that student and get to know about that student. And so even if you can put in some little jokes that, little things funny, that's going to help them relax and know that you can relate to them on an adult level. And that's what's very important.
Okay,
so you don't, like I say, to a certain point, it is easy once you get started. But to them, when they first start, they're not sure about it. But once you get started, it goes along.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, and it's all oral and visual.
Okay.
And it focuses on the short vowel sounds.
Okay.
Because the short vowel sounds, and this is what I say to them in the introduction, talking to them as an adult, the short vowel sounds are very difficult for us to discriminate. You've got a, e, I, and some people have trouble auditorily discriminating it, and some people have trouble processing it. And when you go to try to say these sounds, if you aren't really good at saying these sounds and putting them into the words, it makes for difficulty. And a lot of people have this problem. And so you're not alone. And I tell them, I've done this with people 6 to 60, and they've always been successful.
And one thing that surprised me in talking to you was how much the audio is related to reading.
Yes, because it gets into context reading. Because if you're able to read and put the words together, then, and understand what you're reading with vocabulary, you're context reading. Now, many of them have been doing context reading, but that's where they sometimes make mistakes because they don't know the correct vowel sound to put in to understand the word.
Okay.
So, would you like to start some of this, Tony?
I would, yes. Yes, I'm ready to be your student.
Okay.
And for everybody, Diane has this packet of materials here that she uses with her learners. We have this available as a digital copy to forward anybody who's interested.
Okay, so I first start with Tony. Up at the top, we have 5 words, and these are 5 words that you must memorize, Tony.
Okay.
But they're not difficult. It's apple, a, it, octopus, and up. And the vowels are at the beginning of the word so that you can hear them better. If those vowel sounds are in the middle of the word, it's going to be much more difficult.
Sure.
So to begin with, we have the vowel sounds at the beginning. And just remember those words: apple, a, it, octopus, and up.
Okay.
Okay. Now, I want you to go through and I want you to say the letters and then say them as a word. Okay?
Okay.
So go ahead.
B-A-P, BAP, H-I-N, hin, C-O-N, con, F-I-N, fin, P-O-L, pol, J-A-T, jat, P-A-F, half, F-I-M, fim, T-A-S, tass, T-O-G, tog, B-E-V, bev, S-E-P, sep, L-A-X, lax, J-I-B, jib.
Now, Tony made that sound easy. It wouldn't be for your students. And in fact, I get prepared because down here with B-E-V and S-E-P that are short vowel sounds. Many times students have great difficulty with those two.
Okay.
And so when they get here and have trouble, I say, oh, those are the most difficult ones on here. And a lot of people have trouble. That's not unusual.
Okay.
Okay. Now, another thing that I found with students is many students, there is a glitch between the first consonant and the first vowel.
Okay.
And teachers have stood over students and said, sound that word out, sound that word out. And those students cannot get those sounds to come together. So what you do is you drop the consonant and you go to the vowel and the consonant. Now what's A-P, app, and then you put the B on, back. And you go down the whole road doing that because you've got to program the brain to be able to do that. And I have had students that we had to go through every row like that, but they knew they were being successful. And so they don't mind doing it.
So again, to start with the vowel sound.
Yeah, because it's a processing glitch. They just can't get it to come out.
Sure.
And they had teachers stand over them and say, sound that out, sound that out. They can't do it. They literally can't do it. And so we go through all of that. And then I will do the same theory when we get to the multi-syllable words too. Mm-hmm. Because many students have anxiety and cannot get those 3 and 4 syllable words to come out. And so you start at the back and get the last syllable and then you put them together and eventually then you can do the front.
Sure.
It's just a matter of programming the brain to be successful and taking the anxiety away.
Okay. And I've also noticed, I mentioned in another class I was in where the teacher would do the same thing where she would start with the end of the word. Mm-hmm. And have the students pronounce that and then add on the prior syllables. Mm-hmm. And so that helps focus.
Yeah, and they know they've got the last part, because usually the last part of the word's the problem. Okay. Because they've started here and I just can't get it that far. Some people have such anxiety they can't get it all out there. Okay. Some people just can't produce it, and some people just are so anxious that they have trouble breathing to get that 3 and 4 syllable word.
Sure. Okay.
And so that helps in those 2 different areas.
Great.
So anyway, so
Okay.
that's the first page.
Mhm.
And if we do well, I might say some students, I've had some students who had just a small problem, and they can go through this in 45 minutes and get done with it. Those students, I won't make them go through everything, because you soon know which students don't need to go through everything. And the ones who are doing well, that's going to make them feel pretty good because they're sailing through this, but they also are getting better at it. Yeah. So they're going to say, hey, this is good, especially those. I used to work at Lincoln's Challenge and have those guys come in. I had to have something to keep them motivated. And they felt very good, but they never refused to do it because they saw that they were progressing. All our students want to progress. They do want to be good.
For sure, yeah, especially with our ABA learners who, like you said, haven't had success in school, and now they're working with Diane and finally are starting to put it together. Yeah.
And I've had students say, "He never taught this to me in school."
Right. Not like this, right?
No.
Yeah.
Never did. Okay, so then we go on to the next page that works with diagraphs.
Okay.
And that is something that most people don't have any trouble with because they've had it pounded into their heads in school frequently. Diagraphs.
Okay.
And so I point out to, again, we may start the LISH here. It may be difficult. We'll just do the ISH and put the L on it. If they had trouble on the first page, we'll do that on the second page also.
Okay. Now, not for me, but for anybody else who's watching who doesn't know what a diagraph is, could you?
A diagraph is something that 2 consonants that go together and make kind of one sound.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay, so SH should be ish and CH cha.
Okay.
Okay, and again, it's the short vowel sound.
Sure.
Okay, and QU on here does give people a problem, but again, you go to the IN and then get the QUIN, Quinn.
Okay.
Okay, and then down at the bottom, this is just some words that are grouped together, just more challenging.
Okay.
Nothing too serious. Okay, then we go over to the real world. And most of these are real words.
So we've been dealing with kind of sound
word
or
parts.
partial words,
Word parts.
right? And now we have real words.
Real words. And I just have, all you have to do is just go down and read the word. Now, what I will do with many of them, I will at this point have them put their finger along the side of the word.
Okay.
Because many of our students have a problem with going through and not looking at all the letters. And a finger up here will help them. Not a pencil, because the pencil, they'll just go too fast.
Okay.
And they don't like the finger. This is the one thing they don't like is using the finger. But it slows down the process enough that they can do it. Okay. Now I will tell you, students who are ADHD will fight you on using the finger under the word.
Okay.
Because it irritates them to no end to have their finger up there under the word. And I had students refuse to do it. And I said, well, why? It just bothers me to have it there.
Now, is this because they realize that it's slowing them down?
No,
or
I think it irritates them to have that finger up there.
Okay. Okay.
So I said, well, how about above there? Some of them can do above. But I've also said, well, then we'll just do this. Have them put their finger out at the side.
Okay, so you compromise.
It's compromise. I was just going to say, that's the big word with the adult learners and the teenagers is compromise.
Okay.
To show that you're paying attention to what's going on with them.
Okay.
And so you put your finger either at the side or underneath, but it slows that brain down so that it can process. Okay.
And I see that we have the same 5 words at
all
the
the way through,
demonstrating each of the short vowels.
All the way through. Okay.
Okay.
Now, on the second list over here, Tony, say these words here.
Sure. L-I-T.
You don't spell them, just read them.
Lit, lift, list, lint, lilt.
Okay.
Okay, so very similar.
Yes, very similar, but L-I-L-T is a very uncommon word.
True.
And so I show them, okay, let's drop the L, what's I-L-T.
Okay, we have ilt.
Ilt, now put the L on it.
Lilt.
And I say, you can figure out any word you want to in the whole world now.
Okay. So you take an unfamiliar word, break it down, show them that they can read
They
that.
can figure out any word they want to now. And that's the what that, because see, all these words they very likely knew or could say easily. But then that one is different for most of them. And but they figured it out.
So all of a sudden they have a tool.
So I'm okay. Yeah, I'm not as bad as everybody told me. Okay, now we come to start to move on to something much more fun. And this is 2-syllable words.
Okay.
So we're growing up real fast.
Yeah, we're starting to get longer words.
Yes.
Okay.
And they're more 2- and 3-syllable words. And so I go through and show them. A lot of these are prefixes and suffixes. And so when you have prefixes and suffixes ending on words, that makes it easier. And again, we got apple, egg, in, octopus, and up. And so we go through, I said, C-O-N is con, I-N is in, U-N is un. And so I give those to them so they get an idea. Then they can go ahead and start saying their words. So Tony, you want to say the first row?
Yes. Consent, inhale, unless, summon, lentil, dictate, pallid, consume, express, plastic, velvet, publish, fantastic, elevate, engagement.
Okay.
Okay.
Those were just, respectable words. You did a very good job on those.
Well, thank you. I have a good teacher.
And so see, they just go through and say those. And, words in isolation is the most difficult thing to do.
Okay.
And we're doing these words in isolation, no context. And they're being successful at saying these words in isolation.
Okay.
Now, if they have trouble with the multi-syllable words down here, again, we start at the back and move up.
Go forward.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go back.
Yeah, because we don't, So anyway, this would be, here's a word, say this one.
Contemplate,
Mm-hmm,
equivocal,
mm-hmm,
genetics.
mm-hmm. And sometimes I'll get a student say, what does that word mean? They figured it out, but they don't know what the meaning is.
Mhm.
And so see, we've jumped ahead to the fact that this is reading because they'll be able to figure these words out and it's not going to make it difficult for them.
Sure. Now that they can pronounce it, they want to
Yeah.
process the meaning.
And everybody thinks, oh, they got to know what a word means. Well, when you're reading, if you can read that word, you can usually get the meaning from the context. And that's what, that's what we look for in a super reader is getting the meaning from the context.
Okay.
And so now they can figure these words out. And this word, what's this one?
Temporize.
Yeah, I put that on there because I figured nobody knew what that word meant.
Well, I can't say that I've run across it before.
No, right. But the point is, they do a very good job with it. They just keep flowing through. They don't even hesitate. Okay, so that's that list. Now, some students we will only have gotten this far on the first lesson. And so, but that's okay. They're going to come back. And when they come back, we will start on the first page we started on, but we only do about 3 rows.
Okay.
We
Yeah,
don't
so
do
I was
all of them.
curious about the process with
Yeah.
your learner. If you find that they're getting hung up somewhere, you'll just come back to the beginning the next time with them.
Usually I will come back and go over this, the second lesson, no matter what.
Okay.
Because I just want to make sure that we've got it
Okay.
programmed in up here. So
Sure.
we will only do about 2 or 3 rows. And I say, we're only going to do a couple rows here. And then I'll, just go through that. And then we'll do a couple rows here and a couple rows there.
Okay.
Just to make sure we've got it.
Okay.
And the thing is that they're happy because they can still read these words.
Sure. And now they're maybe breathing through it easier.
Yeah, exactly. So this is good. This is good for me. I'm doing okay. All right. So
Sure.
then
So next we
have the words that see these over here, the words are separated out into syllables for them already. Okay, here the words are not separated out into syllables.
And I see that you put a space between every letter in these words. They're a little bit longer. Most are 6 letters or more, a couple of 5, but you put a space in between the letters.
Just to make it more comfortable.
Okay.
Yeah. we're not wanting them to go through. And so then we go through and say the words here. Why don't you say these?
Yeah. Public, button, Belmont, Boston, Dedham, brandish, pendant, banner, pastime, musket, mummy, mustang, shelter, gallant, mental,
Okay.
falcon, hectic, ruddy, blister, yep, elastic.
And they will be doing it just as well as you did. Yes. I stop and tell them this little anecdote about this Dedham. I didn't know what it was, and I used to say, well, I think it's a city in Great Britain.
That's what it looks like, yeah.
Yeah. Well, one day I was out in close to Boston where my son lives, and we were going down the turnpike, and there was this great big green sign that said Dedham. I said, oh, that's where they were from. Now my family didn't pay any attention to me. That's good, probably, because they wouldn't have understood anyway. But that is where that word came from. So I explained, because I've had many students say, what is that? And I explained to them.
Well, that's close to, being from Great Britain.
Yeah, that,
That's in
exactly.
Massachusetts, yeah.
But it took me a long time. Now, this is my most favorite page.
Okay, so this is called Unfamiliar Words with Familiar Sounds.
Mm-hmm. And these
Okay,
are
I
all
see.
made up words.
Uh-huh. So
And
we can have fun with this.
Yeah, I tell them they're made up words, but they could be a real word someday,
You never know, right?
especially with
Right?
computers.
So this is kind of like the first page where you have just parts, just
Mhm.
one syllable, kind of sounds that you have to read.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay, here you go,
So,
Tony.
All right. The first row is Lambex,
Mm-hmm.
Ritliv, Subtax, Quentog, Honda, Metlock, Shifton, Russman, Philip, Watson.
Yes, and I'm always so
Right.
proud when they put the short E in instead of the short I. They're not anticipating Philip, they say Philip.
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh.
That's close. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm so glad they do that. Great. Now that's fun, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I see a couple of potential planet names in a sci-fi series there.
That never occurred to me. So anyway, so I tell, it's fun, you're gonna be fine with this, and they go through and amazingly, they don't have much trouble.
Okay.
So then, this page is for the younger kids,
Okay.
and I use it, but not too much, because even the younger kids, they can do the big words.
Okay. And that one was similar to when we had 2 pages before,
Mhm.
where it was longer words and you had the space between each letter
Mhm.
and the words. Okay.
Now, this is where we really get into prefixes and suffixes, and I make them sit here and listen, and I say, D-E is D, T-U-R-E is chur, T-R-A-N-S is trans, E-N-T is int, D-I-S is this, E-D is ed, F-Y is phi, and T-I-V-E is tip.
So this is helping again to make a longer word more simple when they recognize a prefix or suffix.
And it's amazing, they just easily go right through it.
Okay.
Because they've got those sounds. So we don't have our clue words up here this time. Okay, let's say the words for us.
Okay. We have departure, transparent, distracted, terrified, connective, monitor, qualifying, dependent, security, sensible, puncture, scandalous, derivative, transferable, unpredictable, requirement, silently.
Mm-hmm. And with like unpredictable and transferable, they're going to need a little help to separate the syllables into the word. But I figure out, well, when they're reading the words, they're going to have context reading, and so it's not going to be a big problem for them. But this is going to make it more difficult because there's no context reading.
Mhm. Okay.
But a lot of them still go through with no trouble at all. And then, let's see, what's this one?
Preposterous.
And they get them.
So what do you look for when someone is having trouble with the word? Is it an emphasis on the wrong syllable, or is it not pronouncing it right, or a hesitation? What indicates that someone, or what do people have the most trouble with when they're reading?
Well, when they get back to here, getting us reading and just.
Okay.
Many times, our students have excellent vocabulary in their head. Excellent vocabulary. And we underestimate that vocabulary that they carry around in their heads. And so if they can get the first part of the word or the last part, many times they can get the rest of the
Okay,
word.
so that'll link to the word that they've already known or heard, or, okay.
Yeah, and it's like you just said, many times they don't quite know the definition, but they've heard it.
Okay.
And it comes in. And I think that has to do with the fact that we put the sounds in their head concretely now. And so that they can pull up these words that they've heard.
Okay.
Before they couldn't do it, but now they can do it.
So it is that the auditory again that allows them to connect right to what they've heard in the past. Okay. Very good.
And here's this one. We're getting back here to we're almost done. And sometimes I don't even do this row. I just do this row. So they're really happy then because they only got that one row to do.
So this is the continuation of the last page.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
And a continuation of keeping the student happy. And then this is these last two pages.
So you are the directions here to divide them into prefix and suffix.
Yeah. Basically, I just have to go through and say the word.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and I don't always do these. This is one I find that is the most beneficial, but you can do any of these rows if you want to.
Sure. We'll go down that row that you pointed out.
Which this one?
Sure.
Okay.
Posterity, rigorous, tortoise, marvelously, consultant, contractor, defector, authority, mononucleosis, audacity, animosity, orthodox, approximate, dormitory, predominate, linguistic, peninsula, capillary, sinuous,
No, sinuous.
sinuous, dilapidate, optimist, optimistic, indenture, contemptuous, temporarily, employee, cosmetic. So you'll have to tell me a definition of sinuous. But I learned
Had to
something
do
here
with
today.
that part of your body that's
Thank you.
okay. The sinuous. Okay, so anyway, like for mononucleosis, I'm going to stop and separate the syllables out for them. Again, because we don't have context.
Sure.
If they were reading, they would probably be, they'd be reading a book about diseases and they would know it's mononucleosis. But I will help separate that out because, let's not make it overwhelming. And they've gotten this far.
Yeah, we're about to that. And like you say, this is still to build confidence.
Yeah. And so, and that's basically it.
Okay. And then from here, you're comfortable jumping from this into, reading
Reading anything they
books
should be reading.
Okay.
Reading anything they should be reading. When I was at Lincoln's Challenge, I took them right into the GED materials.
Okay.
Because again, they've got the vocabulary. And so
just recognizing it on a page.
Putting it together.
Okay. Well, thanks for going through that. Now, I had a question about reading comprehension. So how does this help, or how do you teach reading comprehension to a learner?
I don't. If they can read, they can comprehend.
Okay, I find that interesting when we talked about that last time. So once you get over this hump, you see comprehension improve greatly.
I have a gentleman I'm working with now, and we worked on. He felt that he couldn't get the information from and a main idea and stuff. And I said, you can too. I said, you're reading. And I said, you gotta remember, the first sentence is the main idea. Then the next part is details, and then you've got the conclusion. That's all there is to it. And then so we practiced once or twice, and that was it, because he can read now. But see, all these anxiety things start building up. And even if you get them to this, that you're gonna have to maybe sit with them once or twice and watch them, see what they're doing, and make sure they got the.
So if you're presented with a learner who there's no indication that they have trouble reading, but what they come to you with is trouble with comprehension, you would maybe take a step back, listen to them read or something like that.
Most
and then tackle
definitely.
that. Okay.
Most definitely, because some of our students are very smart and they can get you to think they're reading, but they're doing context reading. They're not reading what's really written there. And so, you can get off with 3 or 4 words and totally get the wrong idea. But that's what happens because so many times students have not had the opportunity to sit and read for a teacher and make sure they're reading correctly. And if they're not reading correctly, they get used to reading that way.
Sure. Especially in a crowded classroom, right?
Yeah. And so that's where a lot of them lose out because they're smart, but they don't get the right information.
So we touched on how this could help some of our ESL learners also.
Oh, definitely. Yes.
So we don't want to forget that this could be beneficial for those tutors out there as well.
I had a student a couple of years ago, and she is from South America. And she told the teachers, Project Read, she said, I want somebody to help me be able to get the information. Well, she had a problem with the vowel sound. So we went through the vowel sounds and she sat there and just read them. But that was the language barrier that she was having trouble with.
A good starting point. Yeah.
And she's doing well now.
Okay. Past that, do you have anything else before we open it up for questions?
No, that's basically what I go through with the students. And like I told them, again, Tony, I worked with you and you're not a failure because I've never had a failure now.
You had me worried there.
I know, yeah.
I don't want to break the streak.
No, it's something that's so easy, but it all has to do with the auditory processing, auditory memory, and being able to comfortably apply it. And when we get to our adults, we've got so many years of anxiety built up too, that if you've got something that can go quickly, that's really makes them happy because they can get on with their lives then.
Sure, exactly. Okay, I think those are all great things to keep in mind too.
Yeah, it works well then for people who are trying to get their high school diploma or their GED and some people have their high school diploma and GED, but they still can't read. So,
okay.
And they say, well, I got my high school diploma. Yeah, but do you read as well as you'd like to? I promise it won't take long. I guarantee.
All right. So I see some. Let's see. So Hannah asks, so then just a couple hours for adults with the vocab?
A couple hours with this?
With, let's see.
This isn't charging, right?
Okay. So Hannah, if you'd like to turn your mic back on.
Yes, just basically what you read. So then if you have those sheets, it's just a matter of saying, can you hear me?
Turn up my volume. I'm sorry, can you start over again, Hannah?
Basically what you wrote, it just seems you just need a couple hours of just concerted effort, and most adults who have the vocabulary already, they can read. It just seems amazing.
Yeah, did you hear?
Something about a couple hours.
Yeah, with the sheets, and they'd be able to read or read better. Yeah.
I would break it into 2 lessons.
Okay.
if they're not having any trouble, I would still do 2 lessons just to make sure everything is remaining there, because they probably will go home and try to read. They may not be quite comfortable as they were sitting with you. So if you go back and go over it again, the second lesson, then you can have them read more. And I think that'll finish it off, because they'll be really comfortable then. And then you can go ahead and start doing a workbook or something like that.
Okay. Does anybody else have questions for us?
I do.
Yes, Anne.
So I think I understood that you really don't focus on the meanings of the words, but some students, of course, are going to stop and ask, right? They're going to say, wait a minute, I don't know this word content. It wasn't clear to me. Do you go ahead and tell them then what content means, or do you tell them, let's just work for now on saying the words and reading the words?
Oh, if they've asked, I tell them what it means.
Okay.
And you focus on that, or only get on that if they are
ask,
curious?
that's what I tell
Okay,
them.
okay.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
we're just moving along.
Okay.
But
Thank you.
I find most of my students have a pretty good idea what a word means.
At that time, they've connected it to what's in there.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. All right. Anybody else? Okay. Well, we appreciate everybody showing up here today, and round of applause for Diane. Thank you so much for sharing with us. Again, if anybody wants the sheets that Diane put me through the ringer with, we have them scanned and available to email to you.
And I would be quite happy to sit for 15, 30 minutes with them just to show what goes on, what they need to do, and that they should be good to go then.
Yes, thank you for that. Yep, because you want it done right. I remember that. Yes.
Well, it's a student's chance to, another way for them to have a chance to get it right.
Mm-hmm.
And since I know it works, I want it done right.
Yeah, exactly. We all want that. Okay. Well, thank you very much, everybody. And you'll have a chance to watch this again on YouTube.
Yeah, light sensitivity has to do with the white paper and the black print and the fluorescent lights. And it exhausts students, and their eyes get very tired when they have to look at the white paper and the black print with the fluorescent lights. And I tell students they have some options. They can turn off the fluorescent lights in the classroom and turn on lamps, which is the yellow light. Like Sue has the right kind of lighting in here. So, but that's what I do when I was at Adult Ed. I went in and turned the awful fluorescent lights off, and went and got some $5 lamps from Restore and set up a lamp and the students could choose which place they wanted to sit, because the older students need more light, so they wanted more light. The younger students needed almost dark, and they wanted it almost dark, and then they could sit there and they didn't fall to sleep. They kept working away because they had the right lighting that didn't make them tired.
So that's one giveaway, would be they start to feel tired when they read.
Yeah, they just go right to sleep. And used to be the students were getting so much trouble because they were falling asleep, and it's because of the lighting, the fluorescent lighting. Now they're starting to wake up to it, but I don't think they've got it right. Now Sue's got it right in here. That's
Okay.
And I'm sure the students don't complain or go to sleep at all in Sue's classroom here. Yeah, so it's lighting, and it's just everybody's different, but everybody's the same.